I moved to the city for college and resided in the school dormitory. That night, while I was going around the dormitory, I saw a lot of smoke. Someone was burning something, and the scent of smoke made me cry. Going a bit further, I noticed an old lady in an alley near the dormitory burning joss paper on the ground. Curiosity piqued. I opened my eyes to take a closer look because she appeared to be doing something other than burning joss paper. She was wearing slippers and was continuously banging on something. That was strange to me since I'd never seen anything like it before. Curiosity caused me to pause and take a closer look since she sat with her back to the entrance, and I wondered what she was doing. So I lifted my body to improve my vision. The more I stared at it, the more terrified I became. The old lady kept banging on the item while murmuring as if she was casting a spell, which was terrifying. And then I realized what she was striking on was a paper doll. It was carved in the shape of a human, laid on the ground and beaten mercilessly. I mustered the guts to approach her and listen to what she was saying. She abruptly turned around and stared at me, her expression frightening. I was startled and terrified at the moment because I was afraid of what she would do to me, so I hurried out of there. I was not sure why I was so afraid of an old woman. Out of the alley there were many other people sitting on the street doing the same thing, which made me ponder a lot at this time. I'd been walking for a while, thinking all the way, and arrived to the dorm without noticing. When I arrived at my room, my roommate, Jan, saw that I was sweating and taunted me whether I had just returned from a date with my girlfriend, that I looked so weary. I immediately wiped away my perspiration, recovered my calm, and informed them that I had just witnessed something terrifying. Then I told them what I had seen earlier. On the contrary to what I expected, when I finished, he stated that this was a typical activity. Seeing this, I inquired more directly about the questions that had been bothering me all along. He said it was an annual ceremony to eliminate inducement curses, which the elders generally performed for their offspring. I was even more perplexed after hearing that, since I had no idea what an inducement curse was or why it was performed around this dormitory. Jan told me a story that he had heard and observed here at the time. I was much more terrified now since I had heard him mention that there was an enchantment with dolls in the dormitory previously. He lighted a cigarette slowly and reminisced about a year ago. He was in the same room as the other boys at the time, including two called Zin and Bing. They were cleaning the room as usual that day when Zin walked in from outside. "Hey, did you just get dumped by your girlfriend? Your face looks like a leftover dumpling," said Bing. But Zin was different that day. He pushed Bing aside and ordered Bing not to bother him in an irritated tone. He then went directly to bed. Normally he would never raise his voice in front of his buddies. Jan soothed Bing, then stated that Zin must be exhausted. He didn't mean anything bad. Zin screamed loudly as Jan and Bing were about to turn and go away. Panicked, they turned back and saw Zin clutching his head and crying in agony. It was becoming increasingly shrill, as if he was in a great pain. Jan and Bing saw this and dashed over to have a look. Then they both became incredibly shocked and panicked by what they witnessed. There were large and tiny holes bleeding on Zin's forehead right now. Those holes were progressively becoming larger, more painful and deeper, much like being pricked with a cigarette. Zin writhed on the bed, holding his head and crying out in anguish. He stopped screaming after a while and seemed to be less painful, but his face looked exhausted. When Jan and Bing noticed this, they immediately inquired about his situation. Then stated that he had been exhausted and in agony since proposing to break up with his girlfriend. Sometimes he had stomachache, sometimes a headache, and every time he went to see the doctor said he was normal. and couldn't find any problem. Before he finished speaking, he hastily held his arm, this time because it hurt. What was frightening was that his arm began to twist horribly. I twisted until it began to shatter and turn 360 degrees. You could plainly hear bones fracturing one by one. Yan didn't know what to do when he saw that in front of him, since everything happened all of a sudden. Zin cried in agony. His entire arm was rotated entirely the other direction, making it appear so scary. He painfully gripped his arm and cried. It was horrible to witness this sight right now. Yan believed this was most likely due to someone enchanting him, and Bing agreed. His face was pallid, like a lost soul, and his eyes were filled with blood-red veins. Then he lied down, covered in blankets, threw everyone out and stated he was okay and there was no need to call an ambulance. Because there was an exchange program at the dormitory that night, everyone gathered in a huddle. Everyone gathered in the yard to chat and discuss about their adventures. Suddenly, Yan and Bing overheard some girls who were friends of Zin's lover chatting. Zin's girlfriend seemed to have locked herself in a room all day following their breakup, causing her friends to be concerned as well. Hearing that, Yan and Bing assumed that because they had broken up, it was so sad that it had occurred so terribly. Bing took advantage of the situation. He had a long-standing crush on Zin's girlfriend, so he purchased a box of cakes and went to the girl's room. When he arrived, he saw that the room's door was ajar and that there was a weird noise within. Bing peered inside by mistake, but he couldn't see clearly, so Bing looked through the glass on the door and was going to call her. But on the inside, the girl was sitting on the bed and performing strange things. She grabbed a rag doll and stabbed it repeatedly with something. It turned out that she had punctured the doll's entire forehead with a needle, leaving holes on it. The cloth doll also resembled Zin. She then began to break its legs and limbs out of anger. The doll's arm progressively broke off and finally fell off, twisting and appearing odd. Her face was pallid with malicious purpose and her lips were muttering something extremely frightening. Finally, she rose up and opened the window to the room, dumping the doll out of the window as if she was about to throw it on the ground. She read something on her lips before throwing it, and as she let go, the doll tumbled down. Bing was terrified after seeing everything, so he didn't dare to knock on the door. Then he turned to find Yan, planning to tell him everything. But as soon as he walked down to the yard, he noticed a big crowd. Bing heard from the crowd that someone had committed suicide by leaping from a building, which corresponded with what he had seen earlier, so he trembled a little and prayed it wasn't the case. When he walked in to take a closer look, the image in front of his eyes caused him to be scared to death. Zin was the one who leaped from the floor, and his limbs were shattered much like the doll Bing had seen previously. I began to panic and worry since I hadn't been aware of such a dreadful spell, and I couldn't believe that girl could do such evil things only because of a breakup. And Yan claimed that both the police and the forensics said Zin committed suicide. No one could find out anything, but at the same time, everyone in the school knew, so she moved to the other school afterwards. And the worshippers from earlier did so to break the spell on that doll with a replacement paper doll.